on Tuesday, President Cyril Ramaphosa conceding that it is rather worrying that on the face of the disaster, rather, South Africans are questioning themselves about whether monies will be misappropriated. We speak now to Advocate Modidima Mannya, legal analyst, following that briefing a little bit earlier on today. Thank you very much, Mr. Mannya, for availing yourself this afternoon. I guess then maybe the question is how much scrutiny is needed to ensure the least or no amount of pilfering.
Yes, good afternoon, Tudu, and to your viewers. I think we must understand that we do have legislation which is actually quite firm in terms of how government and state affairs are managed. For instance, you have the Public Finance Management Act, which is the act that regulates the management of finances of the state. That act says specifically that it is superior to any other law in relation to the matters that it regulates. The difficulty is not about whether we have strong regulatory mechanisms in terms of legislation or regulations or rules, but whether they are being adhered to and complied with at management level. For instance, every cent of the state is by law and by operation of law placed under the authority and trusteeship of a person holding an office called accounting officer. And if you look at the Public Finance Management Act, it's very specific about what Parliament expects of an accounting officer. So the rules are there. The question is whether those who are supposed to implement do comply.
And that's just it. You can have rules all you like, but are they being followed? If we take a look at what happened with the procurement of COVID-19 PPE, for example, I beg your pardon. So do we have in South Africa a best practice example that we can draw from?
You know, I must say that since the PFMA came into force and effect, there has been, in my view, good areas of full compliance, and there have, of course, been areas of total disregard, and I think that would be reflected mainly in the reports of the Auditor General. You know, when the Auditor General issues a disclaimer of opinion, because he's the auditor of the state, he says that there hasn't been compliance, and I think one of the things that may have been missing and lacking is enforcement of the rules and consequence management. And I think the PPE saga is a reflection probably of the deterioration of oversight, accountability and responsibility in the management of the public funds.
Do we need to reimagine the gatekeeping or what you call the enforcement of the rules, as we've outline that they are not adhered to? So the people that we have entrusted to, follow the rules and to implement the rules being found to be wanting. So do we need to maybe reimagine who then is appointed as a gatekeeper?
Well, I mean, to do that, you will have to start by amending the Constitution, which is unnecessary, and you will have to amend a number of pieces of legislation, including the PFMA, which is unnecessary. For instance, every accounting officer has to account to a committee in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces, and the same system is to be found at local government level. And this is inclusive of state-owned enterprises. So let's say, for argument's sake, on health, the Portfolio Committee on Health has got a responsibility to oversee the performance of the functions of the accounting officer of a Department of Health, whether at provincial level or at national level. That does not mean the member of the Executive Council, the MEC, or the minister shouldn't perform that function as well. And it does not mean that the cabinet or the Executive Council of a province is not supposed to do that. So, as I say, the instruments are there. I think the difficulty is whether the people entrusted are doing their work, and if they are not, whether there are consequences. I think the State Capture Commission has revealed to us, to a very great extent, the extent to which some people entrusted with these responsibilities are not performing them. So it's a management problem. I think if the president were to say tomorrow, Minister, I want you to tell me why PPE money was stolen, and if you don't answer, I'm getting rid of you, and he does that across the board, we'll probably have an immediate change in the behavior.
Advocate Mannya, thank you very much for joining us for that conversation. But before I let you go, please do allow me to take advantage of this moment. I do wonder if you've caught wind of news of the turn of events in the Senzo Meyiwa trial with the defense advocate being arrested.
Yes, I think it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. I'm not sure what informed the decision of the police to execute a warrant in the manner that they did with that type of timing. You know, the Senzo Meyiwa trial has been bothering this nation for quite a while, and I think probably everybody was happy to see it start so that we can find answers. At the same time, I don't think police should be constrained in the performance of their duties, but I am sure it is regrettable. I don't think Advocate Tefu is homeless and cannot be found, and the police could have invited him to come to them and to inform him that they have a warrant and to execute it in a manner that is a bit comfortable. I'm a bit disappointed that the police could go and arrest a person in court if that person is not a flight risk. They know where to find him. I think it's unfortunate.
So legally, what then follows? We saw him handcuffed and being led down to the cells. Does this mean he will spend the night behind bars?
Well, it may be that the police, depending on what they are arresting him for, my understanding is that there's an outstanding warrant arising out of his failure to appear in court. It may be that at the police station, after he has been charged, the commissioned officer may deem it necessary to release him. If that is not the case, of course, he will have to appear in court. Of course, the implication is that the Senzo Meyiwa trial will consequently be disrupted. But he will be treated like any other person who's arrested.
It will consequently be disrupted. We do know that it had been postponed, or it has been postponed, to the 30th of May. In the interim, do you perceive that the 4 accused men out of the 5 will then have to get a different legal counsel? Does this taint the case?
Well, it doesn't have any direct link to the case in terms of its merits, but I suppose, you know, when you are running a trial of that nature, you always want to be sitting, preparing, consulting. And I'm not sure how long he's going to be in custody. If, for instance, the court does not release him on bail, it means he will remain in custody, in which case he will not be able to consult with them and to prepare. So either if that happens, and if the time of the 30th of May comes closer, it will inevitably mean he may not be ready to proceed with the trial. And I assume that, and I'm talking about additional preparation, because before the trial started, he would have prepared. And I don't necessarily think that that means his clients will need new lawyers. But of course, they may also think, look, we are in trouble already, so we don't want somebody who's also having his own troubles. We want somebody who's going to focus. So it's a bit of a value judgment that they will make. I don't know why they terminated their previous attorney. Remember, they had lawyers before him, and he took over. So I'm not sure what the circumstances would be.
From your experience dealing with judges, it would appear that the judge on this case, or hearing this case, is quite interested. And he mentioned that there should be no further delays. This case has been delayed enough. What do you perceive is going on in his mind, and what options are available to him, if at all?
Well, there are two things that I must say that no judge wants to be seized with a matter that is unending. And that is because the judges, by the nature of their job, wants to ensure that justice is dispensed as speedily and as efficiently as possible. And the judge knows and he's alive to the fact that there are 5 people whose freedom of movement has been restricted by by them being in custody. And he is alive to the fact that their rights ought to be asserted. If they are found guilty, they must be sentenced. If they are not found guilty, they must regain their full freedom. So I think that is the bottom line of what any judge would insist should happen when there's a trial.
Advocate Defo, as well as his team, allege there's harassment. They allege that there are persons of interest who are quite high profile who do not want him to be on this case. And so when they mentioned that, they were actually testing these allegations. And that's the word that has been coming out from the courts from one of our reporters who is on the ground and is tracking this story. Is that something that is unusual with high profile cases?
You know, I'm very reluctant to buy into situations where people make allegations. You know, if you reach a stage where you say, for instance, there's a mastermind behind this matter, provide the evidence of that. You know, it's very dangerous to keep on making speculative and suggestive allegations. If you say there are people who do not want me to handle this matter, why would anyone want you not to handle a matter? Because those people don't have any decision-making about who the accused in this matter use. So, you know, sometimes people just say things, and I think what will assist is if people say things that they can provide evidence of. This is a court process, and if there is an interference with a court process, that's an affront to the court. And if proper and cogent evidence is placed before the court, I'm sure the court will not hesitate to intervene.
Advocate Mannya, I do thank you for your indulgence. Ever grateful. Advocate Modidima Mannya is a legal analyst, initially coming to talk to us about what we heard from the social cluster briefing earlier on, but also just helping us make sense of consequences of the defense advocate in the Senzo Meyiwa trial's arrest today, in terms of the legal consequences, I guess, for the case going forward.